Hi everyone, my name is Shawson Cruz. I'm the programming manager here at Outfest, and I am so excited to have with us the filmmaker and some of the cast from Ellie and Abbie and Ellie's dead aunt. With us today, we have the writer-director, Monica Zanetti. We also have Ellie herself, Sophie Hawkshaw, and Julia Billington, who plays dead Aunt Tara. Thank you for joining us for this Q&A. Ellie and Abbie, such a fun film that's full of heart. And it's really a teen rom-com that kind of goes beyond your stereotypical teen movie and touches on the importance of knowing what came before us and how it got us here. So Monica, I'd love to start with you. If you could just talk about kind of, I guess, how this whole script came to fruition and what inspired you to write it.
Yeah, what inspired me to write it was particularly in Australia, there's almost I couldn't name another lesbian rom-com, and we were starting to see like some more films coming out, for lack of a better word, that had, you know, a more positive and happy stories about men falling in love and all that. And I just was like, oh, I just want that with women. Like, why isn't someone making this? And then I was like, maybe I should make this. But I'd already made an independent feature film before called Skin Deep, and I knew how hard it was, and I wasn't sure I had another film in me. So I originally wrote it as a play because I was like, I can do a play that I can write and produce and, you know, put it out into the world. And so I originally wrote it as a play. It was very much just a very light-hearted rom-com, the play. It had the element of the aunt, but, you know, the backstory kind of wasn't there. It was more just about Ellie and Abbie falling in love at high school. The play did really well, and it was because of the audience, basically, that got really behind it, and they were just like, you need to make this a film. And I knew that we weren't done with it. Like, it felt like something that we weren't done with. And so I went and I started working on the film script. And as I was writing the film script, we were having the same-sex marriage plebiscite here in Australia, which was when we had a big public vote for marriage equality, which was an awful, awful time. And then as I was writing the film script, I was like, I can't just write this story that's just about these two girls, you know, falling in love without actually acknowledging like Tara's story and what she went through. And so I did a redraft basically that had Tara's, you know, what happened to Tara and all that kind of stuff in there. So that's kind of basically the evolution of the idea.
Awesome. So, I mean, so you mentioned that you kind of you retooled, you know, the whole Aunt Tara thing, but when you were transferring it from play to film, were there any other things in the script or in the characters that you felt that maybe worked on stage but didn't work in this medium?
Yeah, definitely. The character of Abbie as well changed a lot. In the play, Abbie was very much there as a love interest. You know, we only saw her through when, you know, she was on stage with Ellie, and that was another story that got really evolved in the film script. And then also, I mean, just little things like locations and scope and things like that. There's, you know, on a play, when you watch a play, you expect to watch people just sitting there having long conversations. Like that's, you know, that's kind of what theater is. And that doesn't work in a film. People get bored and people lose attention. And so there was ways of having to, like, how do we break up, you know, how do we get all this information across in different ways? You know, we were able to use technology like phones and laptops and things like that. So the little things like that shifted. The heart of it, though, is very similar to what the play was. You know, it's very much, you know, people who loved the play, I don't think felt in any way cheated by the film, because the heart of it is exactly the same.
Did you have any, when you had the script and you were ready to start making it, were there any roadblocks, or did anyone look at the script and think, oh, I don't know if we should do this?
Yes, many people. I had written the script we took it in Australia. The way you kind of get a film made here is that you need to get a distributor attached first, and then you can go, because we've got government funding here, but you can't get the government funding until you get a distributor attached first. And we took it to a couple of distributors, and they all were like, oh, yes, we want to make something like this. This is exactly what we want to make. And I'd be like, okay, great. Well, I want to use 50% at least, LGBT plus identifying cast. And then they'd be like, oh, not like, oh, okay, but like, can you get like, okay, that's fine. We support that as long as they're like quite famous. And so I was just like, okay, that's like not authentic, like diverse casting. That's just regular casting. You just want famous people in the film. And I understand that, but this is not what that project is. Like, we can get, really great actors, but this is very important to me. And so then they all backed out basically because of that. And then, so I was just like, man, I'm just going to have to make this myself. And then we'll get a distributor, then we'll get the rest of our money. And that's what we did. So we crowdfunded. We raised $50,000 in a crowdfunding campaign, which was incredibly hard. And we just shot the film for that. And then once we had shot it, I put together a teaser. 2 days later, we wrapped. And then 2 days later, I went to Cannes Film Festival with the teaser, and then just went for meeting after meeting to basically try and sell it to get our distributors. And it was on that trip that we had the first discussion with the people that ended up becoming our distributors, and we got a post-production investment. And we had a meeting with Screen Australia over in Cannes, hilariously, and they basically were like, we'd love to support this. So it was kind of like that trip with what we had was then what in the end was we were able to finish it. And then we also got the Frameline completion fund, which was the other thing that helped us finish it. So it was a collection of things that all happened after I had shot it. So yes, there were roadblocks.
Yeah, but you went in and you just got it done, which is it's kind of what we do. So can we, let's talk a little bit about your cast. So you mentioned that it was really important to you that it was 50% LGBTQ. So what was the process then for you kind of finding your cast and making sure it met those goals?
Yeah. Well, Soph had been in the play. So Soph I brought over. She's the only one that remained from the play into the film. And so we needed to find a new Abbie. The original Abbie was an Australian actress called Geraldine Viswanathan, she did our play, and then straight away she got a role in the film Blockers, which came out a couple of years ago, and now she's in LA and doing shows with Daniel Radcliffe and stuff. So we were like, okay, we can't get Jez. So I had been keeping an eye out, and there was an actor called Zoe Tarakis who I'd seen in a TV drama that we had here. They were very good. I brought them in to do a chemistry read with Soph. It just worked, and I was like, yeah, Zoe's the new Abbie. And so that's how we got them on board, which was absolutely the right choice. And Jules did an audition. We had some casting directors, and they put out a casting brief basically saying we're looking for queer identifying actors to come and audition. So Jules auditioned, was the best of the lot. But the rest of them were through relationships, really. I think we ended up with 60% in our cast, 60% identifying, which was amazing. And even more, and our crew ended up being 80% queer identifying. It was, and that was very much relationship stuff, which was wonderful. It was it felt very, very organic.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just considering what some of the themes are in the film, it really, to know that was also happening behind the camera is really amazing to hear. Sophie, I'd love to hear from your perspective. I mean, so you were in the play, kind of what was your journey with kind of coming on board and then following this project through its different forms?
Yeah, great. Love technology. I did the play back in the day. It was literally like a tiny little theatre in a suburb in a city of Sydney with right in the flight path, so the planes would fly over constantly. But it was a beautiful play to be part of, and I kind of came on board because I'd done an acting class with Mon, and then she asked me to audition, and I put down a tape for a play, which is a bit of a unique situation, but maybe foreshadowing there. And yeah, we did this beautiful play, and we smashed it out in like 6 weeks of rehearsals, and it very much felt when we did it that it wasn't done. Like Mon had said, that the story had legs and something else would come from it. And I suppose I kind of hung around. I didn't let Mon forget about me. And Ellie is a character that I was very emotionally invested in and attached to. I feel like I've put a lot of myself into her. So when we did get the opportunity to make the film, it was such a blessing to be able to jump back into that character, and it's so cool now to share her with the world and share her story and watch people enjoy her. So it's been a wonderful journey as an actor, and I suppose a play is kind of like the ultimate rehearsal room, right, for a feature film.
So Julia, what about you? What was your kind of journey in joining this team, and what were your thoughts when you first read the script?
First of all, excuse the fingers pointing at the screen. I'm on an iPad, not a laptop. I can't do the groovy spacebar mute unmute. Not quite that seamless. From day dot, it was just an absolute ball of joy. Like picking up the script and auditioning with it, I was like, oh, I like this one. You know, I was like, yes, please, let this one work, universe. And then again, like Mon was saying, because so much was so organic in terms of, oh, and I know this person and this person's keen to get involved. Because Mon kept the integrity of the film being it's grassroots and it's queer. Everyone kind of rallied behind it. And so everyone that came on board just had the right sense of spirit, the right ethos, the right mentality to kind of just roll up their sleeves and get all in there. So it was literally every single day was an absolute joy. And still to this day, like script-wise, Tara as a character has some of the kind of the biggest arcs and journeys and differences that is just a gift when you pick up a script as an actor and you get to go full balls comedy and then also get some really beautifully written, meaty kind of drama moments. You know, I know we call it a romantic comedy. It's kind of a romantic dramedy in a way. And there's some really powerful moments in the film that I'm so grateful that I had that script to work with and loved the ability to take myself to those places. So yeah.
Awesome. So I mean, one of the things about this film that I think is so interesting is just how multi-textured the characters are. You know, kind of again, like as Ellie's kind of discovering this past that she doesn't know about, you kind of see in the characters as well the importance of kind of getting behind the story. For example, you've got Ellie's mom, who has such a kind of not the greatest reaction to her daughter coming out, but then as you go on, you kind of find out what the story is behind out, and it's not behind that, and it's not what you think. And you know, with Abby as well, she kind of gets introduced to you as this typical rebellious type. But then again, as you kind of go further into the story, you see that there's more to it, that she's actually, you know, she really cares about the environment, and, you know, she's very civic minded, which is not what you usually see with the typical bad girl. Monica, if we can start with you, and then we can move to Sophie and Julia if you guys want to talk about your character specifically. But Monica, what kind of workshopping did you do with each of these characters? And, you know, once you had your actors, did some of that change? Or once you got everyone in the room and you started working it out?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly with Abby, because like on the page, and again particularly in the play, when Geraldine played Abby, she was very much a cool girl because that's kind of how she was written, and you know, and Jez just has that natural kind of coolness about her, and it was, you know, it was very much of that vibe with Ellie always on the back foot and Abby always, you know, kind of in control. Whereas when we cast Zoe has so much vulnerability that it was so great to see, like, so quickly any illusion of like this is a bad girl goes out the window pretty quickly. I mean, they meet in detention, so it's very much set up, but you see pretty quickly that, you know, Zoe in that role, you know, creates an Abby who is like really sensitive, you know, snorts, just kind of is doing their own thing, and is very kind of instantly affected by this kind of connection that Abby has with Ellie early on. You can see the fear in, you know, in that character's eyes of being like, oh God, I'm going to have to like someone now, and I'm going to have to go through this in high school. And you can always see that fear being, you know, on the other end of the joy that Abby is kind of feeling and going through this. And so that was something that Zoe 100% brought to the role, and that we just went with. It was just like, that's just working, let's just use that. And then with Erica, the mum, I think what's so interesting about that role, and something that I still discover things about her all the time, in understanding like trauma, and, you know, the more I go back and learn, and something that me and Marta really talked about is that, like, when, you know, that reaction that she has to her daughter coming out, and obviously the fear behind it, and it's not necessarily a fear of like, you know, spoiler, what happened to my sister is going to happen to my daughter. It's more a fear of like, now I'm going to have to look at this again and think about it, and think about, did I do enough, and could I have kept this going, because, you know, now it's going to affect a new generation, this thing that happened. And, you know, that, and it's that kind of insecure fear of when you know, you truly believe that you got to the stage where there was nothing more you could do. You fought as hard as you could fight, and you had nothing left, and you made the decision to stop and to continue on with your life, which is a, you know, a completely fair decision. And now, you know, if she now also has a daughter that's gay, she cannot hide from this thing that happened in the past, and she's going to have to examine that again. And I thought like that was a really interesting way to look at her fear, that it's not just an instant reaction of like, I need to keep my daughter safe. It's not really that. It's more her own inner guilt at what she didn't do enough of.
Yeah. Thank you. Sophie, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of, you know, where you found inspiration for your character, and kind of what, you know, she kind of puts herself out there as this very together type of person, but again, you know, as we go through the film, we kind of see where some of the little cracks are, and like where are the places that she is vulnerable. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of how you kind of put that together, and maybe like what little changes you ended up having to make for being in front of the camera and portraying her?
Yeah, I think that the major factor that happened would be the actors that I was playing with. Ellie, pretty much most of the scenes she's with somebody, a different person. You know, Ellie's in most of the scenes of this film, and except for like 2, I think. And she gets, as an actor, I got to work with so many different actors in the scene. Some of the other actors joke that they never got to work together because it was always just Ellie and people, which for me was great. And I think that was a really important part of discovering elements of Abby, rather of Ellie. That's who I am. Discovering elements of Ellie, because it was about how she worked through different aspects of her experience with different people. And so the way she interacted with Tara versus the way she interacted with Abby and her mum, they all really informed the character formation in my mind, and was really fun to explore how that happened on the day. Like, we shot this really on the fly, but I think when you're working through something very quickly, like a production very quickly, you're forced to commit to the inherent emotion of the scene. You don't have time to do 100 takes of it. You can only do 2 takes. Like, that mum would say to me, you've got 2 of these. So it was kind of like, you have to make it work really fast. And I think as an actor, when you have that mindset, you're forced to, in kind of like a beautiful restriction, forced to find the truth of the scene really quickly. And I think that really shaped Ellie for me, because I was able to find, like, inherently just find the truth in the scene, or at least I tried to, hopefully, as informed by the people that Ellie was interacting with. So I think that was a big kind of joy that came from our very quick production. But I think Ellie's character really developed between the play and the film, as Mon had kind of talked about earlier, the richness of the depth of the character. And I like to think that, given that she knew that I was going to be Ellie, my own quirks and personalities kind of were brought to the character on the page, as well as kind of what I did with it. But I certainly see a lot of myself in Ellie. Certainly the being tall and long and gangly kind of comes from me. I think Ellie's awkwardness is definitely my legacy to her. I'm definitely, yeah, that's me.
Well, I'll tell you, for both Ellie and for you, it works. So
Nothing
to worry about. Julia, I'd love to. So, I mean, Tara, Dead Aunt Tara, kind of is doesn't really have as much context as maybe some of the other people on screen. So, what was it like, portraying her, and what kind of challenges did you have in kind of playing someone who's kind of plucked out of time and asked to kind of bestow knowledge that is relevant, but maybe sometimes out of date?
Yeah. Less challenge and more absolute freedom. So a lot of it I kind of got from the script, but there was very much kind of a Drop Dead Fred vibe going on with it. And in a weird way, that kind of slightly cartoony or Jim Carrey heightened kind of back in the day vibe to Tara that I'm sure kind of was in the script a little bit, Mon, but definitely that's kind of when I read the script what I kind of resonated most with. And so then I just had a ball playing around with this not naturalistic convention that, like, you can see me but no one else can see me, and what fun can we have with that? What things can I move, or how can I appear somewhere? What are the jokes that we can do around the fact that, well, I'm a ghost, I don't have to run next to you as we go along to Abby's house, I could teleport there. Like, it brought out a lot of playfulness, which was really fun to play around with. And then I started to kind of do some research into this march that actually did take place on Oxford Street, and the kind of the unpleasant but accurate history that we have as a legacy as kind of as queer people. But there's been a lot of fighting and pushing and breaking through walls that has sometimes been bloody or illegal at times, and all of the weight and the gravity and the trauma that has to kind of come with that. And obviously I'm a lesbian, that really resonates with me, that really sits with me. I don't take that lightly. I feel very privileged to have kind of been born in the decade that I was born in, where even though still growing up, to marry someone was never something that I had an idea of. Like, the moment I kind of went, oh, I'm a lesbian, okay, guess I'll never get married, I remember that being a consecutive thought that I made. So there's been a few things that I've personally encountered, but I have always felt I can walk down the street holding my girlfriend's hand, that'll be fine. And this is going back to a time when it was more forbidden than that, and the the loss of life that's come with that, and the literal blood that has been spilled in order for the rainbow family to just simply exist. That's not something to be taken lightly. And yeah, again, I just love that there's a film that can pay homage to that and still be a romantic comedy. It's kind of that beautiful juxtaposition that the more as humans that we let our hearts kind of crack open, the more empathy and space we have to celebrate joy. They're two halves of the same thing, of the human experience. So yeah, that's where I drew a lot of inspiration from.
Thank you. That's so beautifully said. Talking about kind of that history, Monica, what kind of research did you have to do to kind of have that be a part of the script in a way that felt authentic? And what parts of that history was it really important for you to kind of portray through this story?
Yeah, I mean, that was a march, like Julia said, it was a march that really happened. It's not our most most famous queer rights event. We have Mardi Gras here, which began as a protest, and that is the one that was to honor like the 10 years of the Stonewall riot. So it's all very much linked. And so I wanted to, I think too, in Australia, and again, this comes down to a lot of non-queer people telling queer stories, is that when they do tell that story, it is always like, oh, let's tell the story of Mardi Gras, and which is so great to do, but we have other stories. And so it was really important to me to not tell the story of Mardi Gras. And, but then I was like, well, then I need to do my own research. Like these aren't things that I just knew off the top of my head, and, which says a lot. And so I went looking, and I found information about this march, which was an anti-Mardi Gras march. It was like a Take Back Oxford Street march where, all these, anti-gay, protesters, showed up to basically be like, we're going to take over the street. Look at us go. And, what was so kind of warming to read about that march was that, and it was about 11 or 12 years after like Mardi Gras had taken place. And the whole fact is that more people showed up to support the queer community, to protest that march, than showed up to actually do that march. And, which would not have happened, probably, 2, 3, 4, 5 years before that. So I thought that part was really quite incredible to read. And then I wanted to be able to tell, so Tara's story is a combination of stories of people that really died and things that really happened. And so it's not based on one specific person. But yeah, there were definite facts that I thought it was really important to have in there. That we have a really terrible long history of police cover-ups, and which is obviously something that still happens. And that was something that was really important to me to get into the script. And there's a real contradiction in the script where you hear this story of Erica talking about how the police let them down, and the police just went, cool, we can just write that one off. We've heard it's a hit and run, it's an accident, that'll do. And then later in the film, when Ellie goes to the police with her mum after, in wanting to find out more information and what happened to Tara. And that was a really hard thing to keep in the script. I tried to take it out many times, and I wanted to take it out in the edit because I hated that they went back to the police. I really hated that. But I had to acknowledge that, with Ellie's upbringing, she would go to the police. She is, a privileged white girl, for lack of a better word, who still has the idealism of like, things are different now and things will change and I will go back there and it will be different. And it's such a small moment, but it's one that I really, suffered over. And so it was important to me that in keeping that in there, that we, made it clear that wasn't going to solve, anything. Tara's story is still very open and still, remains unsolved. And that is something that is very real, that these families now that are still kind of fighting for justice for their loved ones that they lost back then due to police cover-up, they are still fighting for answers, and the only way they will get them is because they are the ones that keep pushing themselves. They raise their own money, they do their own investigations, they do all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, so that was something that was a very real part of our history that I really, had lost a fair bit of sleep over what to do. But anyway, it's in there now. I made my decision.
I mean, but it definitely, it informs Ellie's character, and it, again, adds so much texture to what is already such a wonderful and deep film. So you had mentioned that 60% of the cast it ended up being 60% of the cast was queer, and 80% of the crew. What was it like on set, and how did you all like build? I mean, the bonds between Ellie and kind of all of the different characters is so strong. What was it like on set? And whoever wants to just chime in.
It was a wonderful set. I will say that. It was wonderful. She like Julia said, like everyone just had this attitude of it, of like, we're just gonna get this thing done. And I think, even now we're all still really close, and we all like, when things happen for the film and we're sharing it on social media, it's like everyone is sharing it. Like people that were on set for one day are sharing it because it feels like something that, we all got to make together and was so special. Which is something I'm really proud of, because there's nothing worse than, and I think we've all had this experience of working on a show or something that you're so proud of, but like by the time it comes out, you're like, oh, I never want to see the crew again though. Like, what a beautiful film we made. Sucks we all hate each other now. Like, I don't want to go to a cast and crew screening. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. You girls.
Yeah, no, it is. It's exactly that thing. It still feels like we're this little family, and we like comment on everyone's social media posts, and there's still a lot of group love going on, which is really, really nice. That's all I had to add.
Yeah, I mean, I'm echoing similar thoughts, but even just from an acting perspective, obviously Ellie has a lot of feelings in this movie, and there are definitely lots of moments that are challenging, but I don't think I've ever felt as safe on set before ever, to be able to explore those emotions and go to those places and feel like Monica, it was safe with Monica, it was safe with the other actors, and that, I think that's such a gift as an actor, to have that safe space to explore characters, to explore emotions without any risk, and it was just so fun. Everyone was really nice, and it just was a joy. And I think particularly when you're making films for no money and smashing it out in 2 weeks, it has to be fun. If it's not fun, why are we doing it? So that was a beautiful element to the film, and I feel like we're all just one big family, which is so sweet.
Well, it being a teen film, what would it have been like, Monica and Julia, to have, and Sophie, to have a film like this when you were growing up? Like what would it have been like for you to have been 13 years old, and to go to the movies with your friends and to watch this movie?
I think it just would have, like, I don't want to use words like changed my life, but like, I think it would have changed my life. I think, I say about this film that I want it to be a queer film that you can watch with your mum, because growing up, there's so many queer films out there that I do love, but I couldn't watch them with my mum. I couldn't take them to a sleepover with my friends. They were things that I had to watch by myself in my bedroom. And I've thought about this a lot lately, because I've actually been in a talent escalator lab this week getting mentored by Jamie Babbitt, who made But I'm a Cheerleader. And that film is so important for so many reasons, and mainly because it's the only one. Like, it stands out as the only one. It has the happy ending. It has, you know, it's so special. And I think if like there like more of that is just so wonderful. And so I really just hope that a film like this can, you know, can bring joy. And I think, like, when I look at like Gen Z now, I'm like, oh man, you guys have really got it together. And I almost feel like this film, even though it is for teens, it's even more, I think, for millennials who grew up as the teenagers without it, that are watching it, you know, retrospectively almost. It's almost for us as our retrospective selves. I think this film more for Gen Z. Well, I don't know. I think Gen Z like it too. I hope Gen Z like it too. But I definitely am under no illusion that I am speaking to that generation. I'm speaking to my own generation.
Yeah, for sure. Like my high school teen years, all I remember is like really liking Xena and not really knowing why I liked Xena, but like really liking the friendship between Xena, which I frequently joke about. But I agree with Mon. There's definitely something that, you know, the younger generations can take from this, but it's almost like, and I've watched the film in audiences of our generation, and even, you know, a generation kind of one above ours, where they kind of revert back to being high school teenagers, and they get to kind of repaint over those years with like, oh, imagine what this experience would have been like. And they kind of, yeah, it's kind of a gift to our past teenage selves, as much it's a gift to the teenagers of now. And the other thing that I remember thinking about as I was making the film is I am an aunt to two beautiful nieces now, 6 months and 3 years of age, and they're just glorious. And there was a part of me that was making this film for my own nieces, and for that relationship, you know, to be kind of like, you know, Auntie Jay, Auntie Jules is here for you girls, no matter what, rain, hail or shine kind of thing. And so I really enjoy the element of that specific relationship of an auntie that has your back no matter what. I personally kind of like, I have wonderful aunts, but they're all interstate or overseas, so I've never had that closeness. And I think that is a beautiful relationship between niece and aunt that is kind of not as explored. And I think there's a beautiful camaraderie there, given that they're both gay. So, yeah.
Why am I struggling with this technology so much? It's terrible. I think it's fun, like, to see people watch this movie. Like, it's a really cool thing as filmmakers to then kind of get to see people experience the story for the first time. And I mean, I think that the Gen Z audience, like, totally love it. We had all of these Gen Zs come on set when we made the film to be extras. Mon's a drama coach at like a performing arts school in Sydney, and all of these dancers came and they were all our extras, and they were obsessed with it. And they had come to, a lot of them had come to the play and then come to the film, come to be part of it. And I think their response, I think, gives us a great picture of how, yes, it's meaningful to millennials and above, but I think it's also really meaningful to teenagers now, and seeing that story portrayed in a positive light. Like, it does pay homage to the history, but also it's a happy ending. You know, they end up together at the end. No one dies. It's great. Well, people do die, but the girls don't die.
Sorry, Tara. Sorry. Sorry, Tara.
Only people that were already dead remain dead.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's a beautiful picture to give Gen Z, and I'm excited for all of the Ellie and Abbie homage edits that will end up on YouTube and TikTok. It's my dream.
Beautiful supercuts to questionable music.
That's what I want.
So unfortunately, that's all the time we have. So my last question is going to be a little weird because I know it's kind of a weird time in history. So I'm going to ask what's next, but how you answer it is up to you. It could literally be, I'm going for a walk next and I'm going to, buy a cupcake, or it could be professionally, or, it could be, I'm going to go on a 3-month, vision quest to get in touch with my inner self because there's nothing else to do. So Monica, I'll start with you. What is next?
I'm very lucky in this awful time is that I've still been working. So I'm developing some TV stuff at the moment. And so that is what my day is. I'm in a script lab at the moment, and my day is getting to write, which I feel very lucky to do because I love it so much. And yes, I do feel very lucky in this pandemic that I have been able to still have a job.
Sophie, what's next for you?
I am just riding the joyous wave of Ellie Abbie and loving getting to see people see the film and see their reactions. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to.
And Julia.
I feel incredibly lucky because 2.5 weeks ago, Bell Shakespeare, who's kind of a big Shakespeare company here in Australia, theatre, gave me a call and said, would you like to direct our in-schools production of Romeo and Juliet? And so I said, but I'm an actor, am I qualified? And they said, shut up, yes you are, get in the room. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been in a rehearsal room, which is the most ridiculous thing to say right now. And I pinch myself every morning. But I get to go into a rehearsal room with 3 other beautiful, brilliant professional actors. And we're putting together a mini 50-minute version of Romeo and Juliet with colloquial dialogue cut in and around it. And there's something universal about teenagers falling in love, right? Regardless of gender or anything like that. And so that's what I'm currently working on. And it's a show that this 3 troupe of actors are going to take into high schools, because in high school you can still you're coming into classrooms, so 1.5 meters, what is that? But it's been interesting because we've been inserting COVID-19 jokes throughout the play. So when they get married, they say, I do, and they elbow bump me. It's paying homage to the times, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to walk into a rehearsal room in these times. And we're sanitizing our hands left, right, and center. Props are being sanitized. They're not allowed to be, passed from one desk to another. So there's a lot of precaution we're taking. But it feels remarkable to be able to make art at the moment. And I feel very lucky to be able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just as remarkable to be able to share that art with people. And while we can't be all in the same room right now, and, there's a giant ocean between us as well. We're so happy that, we're able to come together at least virtually, and that we're able to share the film with our Outfest audiences. There was all this uncertainty as to whether or not we can do it, but we're so glad that not only can we share the film, but we can still have conversations with each other. So thank you so much for joining us and letting us share this film with the LA and the US audience in general. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's so good.